All right, so I am going to show how to make a nice Pico de Gallo, which is also known as Salsa Fresca. Just sharpening my knife. Guess I could have started the video after that, so you didn't have to hear that. I'm gonna be making half of the recipe since I'm here by myself. I don't want to have too much food left over. So I'm gonna be showing you how to really get some nice skills going well by finely dicing an onion, finely dicing some tomatoes, how to properly handle a jalapeno, and then mixing it all together and making a delicious salsa fresco. So I have my red onion. I've peeled it already. I've cut off the root. This is the stuff that's left over. Here we go. That's the stuff that I'm not using. And to kind of review this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one cut with my knife most of the way through. So it's not all the way through the root, but it cuts it in half so it makes these pieces on the edge a little bit more fine. And I want to get this really nice and small because I don't want huge chunks. So I'm going to, as carefully as I can, again using my fingers tucked under, I'm going to cut nice small pieces. Again, not going through the root. So that when I'm done, it looks like this. It's cut this way, it's cut this way, but it's still held together here at the end. And then that is going to allow me, there we go, that's a good shot, to take my knife and cut really finely. And again, my knife is working by going forward. You see how it's very quiet? And I'm starting here and pushing the knife forward to get these beautiful, small, very even slices that aren't burning my eyes because I'm not sitting here chopping like that. And I only want half a cup of this because I'm making half of the recipe. The rest I'll save for something else, maybe for a salad for dinner. I don't know. Actually, that looks like it might be perfectly half a cup. Look at that. You'd think I was a professional or something. Oops. There we go. What I had cut is perfectly the amount that I need. That's half a cup of red onion, beautifully nice and finely chopped. There we go. I'm going to drop it into a bowl. Excellent. Now I'm going to show you the best way to cut a tomato. I've picked Roma tomatoes. They're just easier to cut for this. If you've got tomatoes you've grown yourself or heirloom tomatoes, you could be extra fancy. But these are the least expensive tomatoes. They're not really great. You can see how white they are on the inside this time of year. But we're going to be cutting that all out. What I want to do, the way I want to cut these tomatoes, is I'm going to cut them into quarters. Then I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to sort of cut it out as if it's a canoe. So I end up with this part, which is the seeds and stuff. I'm going to leave that to the side. There's not a lot of flavor in that. And I'm going to throw those to the side. I could throw those into my bag and use for vegetable stock or chicken stock later. But because they're so white, I probably will just compost them. So what I'm left with is just what's called a tomato petal. Or I'm going to do a salad. You could just put this on the side of a salad. Looks really nice. But what I would like you all to practice is taking your knife and again using a nice forward motion, cutting these into 4 or 5 sort of strips. So you have a little strip like this. And then I'm going to take that and cut them into squares that are roughly the size, maybe a little bit bigger since this is the main component, but roughly the size of your red onions. So you see they're nice and they're even, square shaped. I'm not just roughly chopping them. And this takes practice. It really takes practice. It took me several months to kind of doing this literally like every day. But go slow. And remember to let your knife move forward as you're doing it rather than just chopping like that. I'll show you this side with the skin up. Maybe it'll look a little bit better. I'm gonna cut forward, cut forward, cut forward. I've got 5 nice little slices. I turn it this way, and then I cut them into squares. And the smaller you get, the nicer the texture is gonna have, the more sort of dippable the sauce is gonna be, rather than having huge chunks of tomato. But practice with a couple of those. Even if you mess it up, they're still edible. And again, you're not being graded on your knife work, but if they look like that, that's really beautiful. It's gonna come together nicely in the salsa. I think I'm gonna have to do 1 or 2 more, which I don't have to show you, but you know what? I will. I'll show you 1 more just to kind of reiterate it. Always make sure you remove the sticker. So I cut them into quarters, and then I cut through the seeds, and this is gonna get the little end piece, and also remove all of that spongy, fleshy stuff in the center. There we go. There we go. Beautiful. So again, nice and slow. You can see that. Yep, good lighting. Just do 4, and then really concentrate on getting nice, beautiful looking squares. I think I might even need to do only 2 of these pieces. I'll save the others for a video I have to shoot for the other class. See how I'm not making all that much noise with my knife. I'm not doing cutting. I'm letting the slicing happen. There we go. I've got a cup of tomatoes. I'm going to add them to my red onions and then get set up for my jalapeno. All right, so I have my jalapeno. This is a jalapeno, as we went over class. A fresh jalapeno is a jalapeno. A dried jalapeno is a chipotle. And I have put this extra little cutting board on top because I don't want to cut anything after I've cut a jalapeno because the oil is going to get on it. It's going to burn. If you want to wear gloves, you can wear gloves. What I'm going to do with this, and I'm only going to use a little bit since I'm cutting the pepper or the recipe in half, and it was quite a large jalapeno. It's not a medium jalapeno at all. Is again, I'm going to cut into quarters and then kind of just scrape out those seeds. The seeds are where the most of the heat is. So if you want a super hot, not that jalapenos are super hot, but if you want a really hot one, you could put the seeds in. But again, I'm taking out this little white fleshy part. My dog is barking. The white fleshy part, because I don't really want that in there. So all I'm really using is just the skin of the jalapeno. And this I want to dice up really small. So this is a great opportunity. Hopefully you can see that, the green on green. This is a great opportunity to really practice getting nice small slices with your knife. And feel free to practice. If they don't come out perfect the first time, practice them again. And then I'm going to line them up like a bunch of matchsticks, holding very carefully. Again, rocking my knife, not chopping with my knife. I want to get really nice small squares so that when you're eating this, you don't get like a huge mouthful of just raw jalapeno. And the smaller you slice it, the more it's going to release its heat into the pico. That's about all I'm going to use. You could certainly use more. This is where you can kind of play with your own taste buds and see what you like. If you love jalapenos, put in a bunch more. I'm going to let this sit to the side. And then what I'm going to do is wash my knife and wash my hands. Because if I went on and anything I touch next is going to be covered in jalapeno juice. If I went on and put my contacts in or something, that would be sad. And then the last thing I'm going to add, I have a little bit of cilantro that I have rinsed. And as I cut parsley before, I'm going to roll up my cilantro and just very casually chop it. I don't know what he's barking at. I think he wants more. I'm going to add my my cilantro into there. Rock and roll. I have 2 tablespoons of lime juice. And then I'm going to take my zester. I'm going to put in a little bit of lime zest. Boom, boom, boom. I'm going to put in a little pinch of salt. Boom, boom, boom. A little pinch of pepper. And then I'm just going to simply let this sit and marinate. That is how, wow, that lime smells great. That is how simple a pico de gallo is, a fresh salsa. You could put in some bell peppers if you wanted. You could put in a hotter pepper if you wanted. I'm going to show you how to put in some mango to make a mango one. But this is a very, very basic pico de gallo. I'm going to let that sit. As it sits, the salt's going to draw out some of the liquid. It's going to become a little bit more liquidy. And there you go. And for my mango salsa, this is a mango. It's a fruit. Absolutely not a vegetable. What I'm going to do is, there's 2 sides of the mango. You've got like the flat side and then sort of the more rounded side. You always kind of want to cut parallel to the rounded side, because in the center is where you've got that stone, which is the seed. And I'm going to cut off, this one smells relatively ripe. I'm going to cut off the skin. Another way you can cut the mango is if you take the mango, the corner like that, and hold it very carefully. Just cut right through the flesh with very little pressure, because you don't want to cut into your flesh. And then crossway. When you turn it inside out, you can take your knife and just cut out those little squares. Boom. That's a little crunchier than I want the sound, but it's okay. I tasted the other piece from the other one. It was good. You got these little pieces. What I'm going to do with this is the exact same thing. I'm going to cut off as much of the skin as I can. What are you barking about, boy? You want some salsa? There's that guy. All right, and then I'm going to cut little squares, the same way I cut the tomato, maybe a little bit larger. And this will actually sit nicely in the salt, because that'll pull out some of the texture. This is a little crunchier than I like mangoes to be. So again, all I'm doing is making some nice little squares so I can take my salsa, add some mango, and again, let it sit. And now I've taken my pico de gallo and I've turned it into a mango salsa. That smells just awesome. And this can sit for a day or 2. It'll get a little bit juicier, the salt a little bit softer. Beautiful over a piece of chicken. You can certainly just do it on some chips, piece of grilled fish. Really, really great way to practice your knife skills and still have something really nice to eat.